Good morning or afternoon, beautiful people. How are you? Today, I am starting a new series, a new opportunity to get to know amazing people, and it's called Impactful People Live. And I have the honor of welcoming Joanne Avison, who I see she is here, and I'm like shaking. I'm so excited. So let me go ahead and invite her on, or accept her request. Let's see. Go live. And hopefully the internet does what it's supposed to do. And there is Joanne. Can you hear me okay, Joanne?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good evening.
Good
evening for you. It's morning here for me.
Well, good morning to you. And it's so lovely to see you kind of live online.
I know. Okay, so this is the first time we've actually talked in person. We've conversed a bit in Instagram DMs and then email, and like it's always like, I'm sure you have students tell you that they feel like they know you because they've been learning for you for so long. So I'm so excited for this. So you're my first guest in this series of Impactful People conversations. And let me just start by introducing you the way I know you, and then you can fill in wherever I have missed anything. So you are an expert of fascia and specifically spiritual sciences, which I'm so excited to hear more about. You are an author, and I have your second edition of your the Yoga, Fascia Anatomy, and Movement book.
I love all the tabs, and I've got to tell you, that's really gorgeous.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
You actually read it. Like, you didn't just get it and put it on the shelf. You actually read it, and it's like, oh my goodness.
Well, I try to only talk to people that I like. No, I mean, obviously, I'm so excited about you and what you're doing, and I have actually the embryology section tabbed at the top, which I think for my audience of people who teach pre and postnatal is the most interesting. And so that's why I had called this Debunking Biomechanics, because we'll get into your word of biomotional and your absolutely beautiful way of describing the embryo. And I'm getting teary. The embryo and how it's you call it embryo, and how each of us, the way that you put it in that we all self-organized. That's the most beautiful way that I can.
And I think, so thank you is my first thing. Is thank you. It's just so beautiful. We write these books and we do these articles, and we for years and years and years, and sometimes you think you're working into a vacuum. You never actually anchor. Do you know what I mean? And then somebody like you comes back and asks questions and is interested and is intrigued, and then does something with the answer to that question with your students and clients, and then comes back and it's like, oh my goodness, this web really works. And it's animating a web that what I've tried to do is kind of demonstrate that the 400-year-old model that we have of biomechanics is an inherited way of understanding the human body that isn't accurate. It's not human, fundamentally. And it's not a question. When I very first started writing Alison, I was nervous, and I would write things like the biomechanical explanation of movement and the anatomical idea that we're made of bits is insufficient. And I was very lucky. I met a man called John Sharkey, who's a clinical anatomist. And what that basically means, it's not a protected title. So he doesn't have DR in front of his name or professor in front of his name, which frankly he should have. But what it means is that if you want to become a doctor in any country in the world, you have to go through very rigorous training. And that training is sanctioned by a clinical anatomist. And that doesn't mean you've done a year of anatomy or 2 years of anatomy, or that you've looked at a cadaver a few times, or like me, you've done a lot of dissection. It doesn't mean that. It means you're required to know every millimeter of the human body and what it does. And what John does also is he's an exercise physiologist. And unlike many in his field, he's also practical. He also teaches neuromuscular therapy. He's responsible for European neuromuscular therapy. So he understands as a therapist what you and I deal with when we're with our clients in situ, whether we're working with them movement or manually. And I was very alone when I first came into this field, because I practiced yoga, I studied anatomy with my teachers, and I had one, John Stirk, who was just amazing, because he said, he introduced us to biomechanics through The Thinking Body. The book, The Thinking Body, the name of it, it's so well known. It's read Mabel E. Todd, The Thinking Body. And I was lucky enough to go deeper into Stanley Kellerman's work and so on, where he talked about emotional anatomy. But I was left constantly with these questions. What is this all about? And I started training with and working with Tom Myers, and I spent several years doing dissections with him. I did the first dissection of the anatomy trains, and that got us from bits to bands. But the truth is, and we have to understand this, and I'm not being negative, Tom was amazing in the sense that he cleared a forest that needed clearing. Yeah. And he's a big, brave man, and he was out there with his scythe clearing the forest so we can all stand there and say, well, you know what, Tom, you were wrong. That's not a beech, it's an oak, actually. But the truth of the matter is, he cleared the forest for us to see those distinctions. And what he did was he disrupted the idea that the bits were separate. And what he did was, it wasn't his original idea, in the sense that there was a group of teachers who were teaching anatomy via this metaphor anatomy trains. But it's become a kind of a new idea that we're actually joined up anywhere. So what anatomy trains does is it gives you lines of connectivity from ground to crown that are similar to, or we could say resonate with, the idea of Chinese medicine meridians. Yeah. Okay. Now, into that walk me, who asks questions all the time, whose father was an engineer. Well, my father was an engineer and an architect. He wanted to be an architect. He became an engineer. And he said to me one day, what's this business of levers in the body? And I said, oh, Dad, don't. I'm trying to learn the origin of the muscle and all the levers, and the first class levers and the second class levers and the third class levers. Blah, blah, blah. And he just looked at me and said, well, it doesn't make sense from a movement point of view. And I said, what do you mean? And he was a pilot. He used to be a Top Gun pilot. He was, the original Top Gun. He flew Meteors just after the war. So thank God he didn't actually he wasn't in the war. But he said to me, he used to explain to me the movement of airflow on a wing. It was called Bernoulli's theorem, and how an airplane rose up. And I said to him, well, tell me how a lever works in a body then. And he said, well, it doesn't. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, levers are open two-bar chains. I'll explain what that is in a minute. An open two-bar chain that moves in one plane with a pin joint. So if I'm just taking a couple of highlight pens out of my pot here. What that means is there's two bars. They're both open. They're joined with a pin, and they're both open at both ends. That's a lever. So it would be like the arm of a puppet, Alison. You know, like Pinocchio. Yeah? Well, number one, there's no pins in us anyway. We're born, it's first thing. Second thing is, there's no open two-bar chains, because if this is a lever, on the other end of this is continuous. It's all joined. There's nothing open on both ends. So I was like, okay, that doesn't add up. But you know what, Dad, I'm not about to take on biomechanics as a thing. And my studies brought me to being invited to write Yoga, Fascia, Anatomy and Movement. It was commissioned. And I started asking everybody questions. I drove everybody, Robert Schleip, Carla Stecco, Jaap van der Waal. They're all people I know. And Jaap is a very, very dear friend of mine. And he, as you know, is quite the master. Not only, he's an emeritus associate professor of anatomy and embryology. And I say that not to boast about my friends. I don't mean that. We actually fell in love over a coffee table, and I can say that because I completely adore Jan and his wife Else. They're amazing people. But because I was a chocolatier, he's crazy about chocolate.
Okay.
And I said to him, well, chocolate is a liquid crystal matrix, and it's more like the body. It makes sense to me than levers, you see. And he looked at me and he said, oh, okay. And so from that moment, he took me very, very deep into embryology. And I said to him, how can there be levers? And he banged his hands on the table and he said, there are none. And I said, well, if you're saying that, and I'm saying that terrified of the establishment, and for me, you're at the top of the establishment, what's all the stuff in between? And he said to me, think about this. And he did help me write that section of my book. He really was fantastic. He said to me, we behave as if the body's made of parts, and we explain how those parts are put together. The embryo tells us the truth. The embryo starts whole and complete and forms parts within the wholeness. They are never separate. Just because it looks like a lever doesn't mean it is a lever. And that was my moment. Alison, it was incredible, because what I realized was, if I was a puppet or I was doing a shadow play show, which is what they did in Victorian times, it looks like a lever and it looks like it only moves in one plane. But of course, we're a tubular network. So I was like, my world was rocked, and I started asking even more questions in the dissection lab. I had the privilege of working with John Sharkey. I started pulling all these things together. And from the research, it became clear, you know, from the history section in that book, that Descartes did a turf deal with the Pope back in the 1700s to get permission to dissect human bodies rather than the Barbary apes that they used for research. And to get that permission, it was granted on the grounds that the human being, i.e. the mind, the emotions, the spirit and the soul, stayed under the jurisdiction of the Catholic Church. The body, however, went to science, and that rift, and Dr. Candace Pert writes about it in her book, Molecules of Emotion, that rift, the introduction to that book, was the foundation of the last 400 years of study of anatomy, physiology, of biomechanics. And it rattled my soul, because I thought, well, hang on a second. I'm not making anybody wrong, but how is it right? Into which I was invited to teach at a place actually just in a very general class, but I didn't know it was part of a mystery school or a wisdom school, which I joined and became a minister. And I started studying spiritual, and I felt at home. And of course, was I surprised to find that they'd already written a great deal about fascia there and talked about it as a communication highway network within the body. And that's where my big penny dropped, was that the fascia for me, because by this time I knew it was the everywhere tissue, the ubiquitous everywhere tissue that forms us, or that we self-organize as embryos, is the interface of how spirit animates the matter of us. And it happens from the embryo. And what I saw and realized was that we are the architects that self-organize in order to express ourselves as the architect, in the round, connected, whole and complete at all times. Now,
At all times.
At all times.
All times.
That said to me, the parts come from the whole. We begin as these are his words, unicellular being, not a unicellular cell. We're not a conceptus, we're not a thing, we're a being, a unicellular being. And most of the functions at that point are in the placenta, which gets short shrift in our research. And in a way, and I'm kind of poeticizing this a little bit, but you'll forgive me because it makes sense from the inside. The embryo then, as it grows from this unicellular being, and the third multiplication of cells, by the way, matches perfectly all the sacred geometry of the flower of life. Just so you know, this isn't new. This is ancient sacred geometry of life force. It's just so rich, it's ridiculous. But stay on our journey. as it multiplies, it becomes more able to bring in the functions that are kind of held in the placenta. It's not separate. And then the whole process invaginates. I can't explain, it wraps around itself and through itself. And the whole embryological process is one of invagination, this process of folding in and through ourselves. That puts us straight off into the fourth dimension. Straight away, fourth dimension. We move through ourselves to become ourselves. And to see that, we've got to get into the fifth dimension. And when we start talking about levers and lines, we're in the third dimension. And this is where I think it's so crucial, the work that you're doing, because you're bringing people back to themselves as the origin of their architecture, which we are designing on a daily basis. And when we use movement, be it yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, martial arts, whatever, we're talking to that tissue. It's everywhere. It's everything we're made of is mostly fascia of one expression or another. It's got as much variability as we have traits of personality. And it's folding in on itself all the time. It's self-organizing all the time. And Yarp talks about, we wake up an embryo every day. How shall I develop and self-organize today?
I love that. That's powerful.
Yeah. So that's a very potted history of 25 years of work, but can you see how I've kind of tried to make the physical part of a whole system that is fluidity in motion. It's bioemotional. We're moved, but we're moved by something that thrills us or upsets us just as much as we move as a result of it. And we can't treat those separately.
Right.
We can't. And the other thing, the last thing I'm going to say, I'll shut up, and then, because if you've got any questions, I want to answer them, or if anyone else has, is that as women, we have not a power. We're all equal in terms of being equally deserving of respect and equally capable and powerful, but we're different. We're equally different. And that difference is we can have babies. Men can't have babies. It's just, sorry guys, but we have give birth all comers. And we have an ability to understand invagination in a different way. And archetypally, we represent each other very, very beautifully, but we don't discriminate. If we've got a baby, we don't discriminate. We just grow it, we nurture it, we love it. We're the mother matrix, and matrix means mater. It comes from the same word. So the fascia matrix is the mothering matrix. It's the nurturer within us. Now that's not a feminist statement as much as an honoring of the feminine grace that calls all this together and holds this and expands to include this. And I think that's our future of including that. I'm not saying men can't do that. I'm not saying men can't expand to include, but they can't have babies. Right. Just that's true. And so what I long for is this respect for this mothering matrix in all of us. I have a son who I adore, and I love it when he has that grace and care of himself and of others. But every move he makes is a move of self-expression. Every move you make, every move I make, every move everyone makes. And we can't judge ourselves by our standard of whatever practice we have. We judge ourselves. We don't need to judge ourselves. This is who I am. This is what I want to hear everyone saying. This is who I created myself to be. How does it work today? Can I do something to improve it? Can I don't know what, drink more water because I feel thirsty. Maybe move more coherently because I could practice that. Do you want to say, I mean, John Sharkey calls fascia a process rather than a thing, which is brilliant. It's more a system, it's a process. And I think what happens, Alison, as we become more aware of this and we integrate what you could call the spiritual science to the physical science and the emotional science and the physiological science, we're bringing it all together and weaving it together and the fascia weaves us together. So we're just reflecting who we are.
Ooh. That, you know, the part about you reframing embryo to embryo, and just the fact that, you know, so many women, for the most part, I think women easily get pregnant. I have 2 adopted children whose, you know, mothers, they are from the foster care system, and so their mothers were, you know, drug addicted, this type of thing. One of them was, he is the 4th of 7 that this woman had by the time she was 24 years old. And, you know, you take that and then comparison. Well, I mean, we actually adopted because I did have a hard time getting pregnant. We did end up getting pregnant 8 years, after 8 years of unexplained infertility, which I'll tell you a story that you might find fascinating about that. But my point is that it seems to come so easily, right? It just happens. And yet, obviously, a lot of people take it for granted that, you know, it's just so easily happens. You said that you started this about 25 years ago is when that click happened for you. How old is your son?
My son is 30 in January. So I started doing the body work. I think I met, I'm trying to think. I started doing yoga nearly 30 years ago, and I've been doing structural integration. I met Tom Myers 98, so that's 25 years ago. Yeah, that's when I started being a hands-on body worker. And that's when the debunking the biomechanics became so important, because when you've got your hands deep in someone's tissue and you're basically learning to be what I call a fascia whisperer, because fascia talks. Fascia has a whole language. And when you work hands-on, and many of the people listening to this, and you, I know, you'll tell me this, Alison, when the way you assess a client or respond to a client is very different now to what you did 10 years ago because of all that 10 years in between. I'm not saying you only did that 10 years ago. I'm saying you read your children differently as you get used to them, as you grow into them, you read other people, right? So when you start touching bodies every day, you're working with their structure, and you're trained in all the technical stuff, but you've got to translate it into physical, actual happening. You learn this language, or you learn that it speaks a language. It's under tension. Everywhere in the body, the fascia is under tension. It's like, if you look at your hand, it looks like the spokes of an umbrella, because it's already tensioned. It's called a pre-tensioned architecture, like an umbrella. When you put up an umbrella, that's a tensioned architecture. The fabric's tensioned and the spokes set that up. It's not an ideal metaphor, but it works-ish. And you can imagine that the bones, they grow much faster than the tissue around them. They are tensioning the tissue. And so that has a resonance, just like a guitar or violin or a string instrument. It has a resonance. And in all that time and all that situation, you learn that resonance more and more and more in more and more detail over time. So you would have done that with your movement work, as anyone else does. Gradually we grow in this fascia whispering. But what I think we're not encouraged to do is listen to our own, quite the way that we could. So when you say that we can have babies quite easily, and we take on life quite easily, we work our way through it, doing the best we can at the time. But I think, I don't know if you agree with me, that our culture is set up that our achievements are somehow external.
Sure. And oh yeah, definitely.
Can we invite ourselves back in to recognizing our achievements? That's what Embryo is about. How congruent and resonant are you with your dreams, ideals, intentions? I mean, as a mother, you wanted to be a mother. You had an intention to be a mother. And do you judge that against some external standard, which must be rigorous and difficult, with also, you've opened the whole field of a child that's biologically yours, and that's a whole even bigger story of the nurturing mother, and that takes an even greater evolution of spirit and energy and commitment. Yes.
It's what you said about the external, how we definitely, our culture is definitely set up to judge externally, which is one of my biggest one of the biggest things that I'm doing with what I'm doing is helping Pilates teachers to not only help themselves, because obviously in Pilates it's such a you hear the term Pilates body, and it's a very obviously it's not like this everywhere, but anybody that doesn't know Pilates may have heard, in Hollywood, or it's to have this thin ideal, right?
Yeah.
And obviously in the pre and postnatal, the number one thing is that women want to get back. That term is bounce back, which I completely don't use. I always say, don't say that. And yes, so finding how can we really come back to who we are from the inside.
I think if we could, or let me ask you this, because you work with this area specifically. Do in Pilates prenatal and postnatal, is there a shift in the awareness of the mother from being someone that's working on their own to being someone that's not on their own anymore? A shift in their self-sensing. I know you can't necessarily feel the embryo, but for sure you can feel that you're pregnant, right? You feel different. And is it a question of, we put it in parentheses, in brackets, oh, well, this is just this 9-month thing that's going to, right, until I bounce back, to use that word. But there's no bounce back, because nothing's ever going to be the same again, ever. Yeah. Even if you don't, whatever your choices are, I have no judgment about those choices. God love each one of us. I think, we're here to complete our destiny and the way that we do. And I'm sorry about the alarms and the noise in the background.
Okay.
If everything that go off in this house has gone off in the last 10 minutes. It's just done. And now I can't do anything about it. Whatever.
It's okay.
So, I'm sorry. I want to yell at my son, but I can't. Nothing's the same. Nothing is the same. And I think, I don't know about you, I remember when I put on hundreds of pounds. You'd have thought I was carrying a whale. And it was the most extraordinary time, but nothing prepares you for the other side of that, which, whether you've had a child that you keep, or you have a child that is, God forbid, ill, or you become ill, or whatever the circumstances are, it's highly fraught, it's highly emotionally charged, and it's transformative, right? However you acquire a child, it's transformative. And what we begin to realize when we understand Embryo is that every single moment of our transformation, it began as a unicellular being, and we've been transforming since that moment, and we will continue transforming till we finish transforming in Earth School. And that process of transformation is, how can I accommodate this the way that it really is? And what happened for me, Alison, was discovering that the biomechanics and the anatomy that seemed so alien to the process are worse than insufficient. They're mostly wrong, in the sense that when they're based on linear forms, they're based on non-biologic forms, because biologic forms are non-linear. All biologic forms are non-linear. There are no straight lines, flat planes, or exact symmetries in any non-linear biologic forms, anywhere ever, period, full stop, end of. Everything in us is round. We're made of rounded cells. Our arms and legs and limbs and torso, they're all rounded. We do not fit in flat planes. We do not fit as linear things. And when we're carrying a baby, we're carrying a round thing growing inside a round thing that we're surrounding. So
That
it's omnidirectional and multi-directional and multi-dimensional, because we are. And what fascia is doing that's so exciting is demonstrating to us, as the largest sensory organ of the body, that the awareness of that roundness is the very architecture that we're made of. You can't get your head around that. It's not an intellectual process apart from anything else. It's a spiritual process. It's an emotional process. It's a bioemotional process. It is not a biomechanical process. Why not? Because we're not mechanical. There's nothing mechanical about you. There's nothing mechanical about becoming pregnant or going through a pregnancy, completing a pregnancy, giving birth. There's nothing. Have you ever come across two people who've had the same experience of childbirth?
No.
How do you prepare them? It's a question. How do you prepare your mums for what you don't know?
I don't. I don't do that. No, like it's funny because I don't, like, while we do, like, obviously movement to prepare, you know, I actually teach my students that teach other women not to give their advice, or, you know what I mean, like, especially don't tell any scary stories, but I leave that to doulas, you know, the midwife. That's not my place, so I don't.
But if helping them prepare with the appropriate movement to prepare their bodies,
you don't know that they're that's
right.
Yeah.
You don't predicting. You don't do, oh, I know what's going to happen here. You're an AZYPT 7426 version. No, there's no such thing. Everyone's unique, right?
Yeah.
And ironically, that makes us all the same.
Yeah, which
yeah.
Which don't you just wish that that people could see that everyone is the same? I mean, God, wouldn't that just bring world peace?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. So one of the things that teachers, one of the main reasons I got into this was that Pilates teachers generally are afraid of teaching this population. And this was the post that I was inspired to do through your word, Biomotion, when I started getting into your book. You know, and so I thought, like, why are people so afraid? Well, obviously, you know, it's you don't want to hurt them. You don't want to hurt the baby. That's normal. But why are we, I was trying to really understand, what is it about how we have been educated that's maybe instilling that fear. And my theory is that it is because we are taught that we are in parts. So if we're in parts, then when a woman gets pregnant, the baby, like you see in any, you know, plastic model, you can just put the baby in and take the baby out. And maybe that is why people are afraid, that they're not seeing it as a whole, that they're not seeing that the literally everything is connected and safe, and that baby is as safe as can be in there. That is what really I loved about your word, which I hope that it can become a word in the dictionary that you look up and say, this is the way, you know, this is how it is. This really is how it is. And one more thing about like why I'm so passionate about this is I was a dancer, and I always failed my anatomy tests. I could never understand origin, insertion. I was like, this makes no freaking sense to me. And now, like, thank God, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, now I know. And you know, so if you have any kind of, well, you said that your experience was as a chocolatier, of one thing that you discovered in the many things that you've done in your life. And for me, it was dancing. It was like, how can if my elbow can only suppose that why can I,
This doesn't make sense, because
right.
so basically the question you're asking is the same question I asked. It's no different. And I was very, very lonely when I wandered around not being able to make sense of why origin and insertion. And I remember one of the biggest shocks I had before I did dissection was, I don't remember how it came up, but somebody was asking me about latissimus dorsi. And I was teaching for Elizabeth Anderson then, the Pilates Method Alliance, I think, is it that was called?
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, so I was teaching Pilates teachers anatomy training at the time. This is way back. And I got on the phone to Tom. You know, he was on speed dial in those days. I was working with him, for him, you know, all this. And I was like, Tom, latissimus dorsi, where is it? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I can't remember. You know, I know it's from the sacrum to the, you know, the origins and insertions at the sacrum and the humerus, but where does it come up to on the spine? Is it T7? Is it T9? Where is it? And he said, I think he said T9. So I went, oh, okay. And I thought, really? And then I watched somebody dancing. There was a Pilates teacher who was a dancer, and somebody who was just so thin you could practically see the muscle fibers under her skin. And I saw her moving, and I thought, there's no way that latissimus dorsi is connected at T9. You give me a break. That's like T4. And I was watching her moving, and she said to me, what are you staring at? Is there something wrong with it? I said, no, it's fascinating. Your movement's beautiful, but I'm reading your body literally. And I've got to do some more homework. And I was teaching them for a few days, and I went home and I got out all the anatomy books, and there were variations on where latissimus dorsi was supposed to be connected. And I thought, what do you mean there's variations? Or it either is or it isn't. I was like, seriously? And I started researching latissimus dorsi. And I found out that it's one of the so-called largest muscles of variation in the body.
Oh,
Some people have, it's only like down three vertebrae, like a wing across. It doesn't go down to the sacrum. In other cadavers, they found on one side that it's two muscles, one going to the shoulder blade and another one connecting at the shoulder blade going into the humerus. And suddenly I was like, hang on a second here, just a second. My work's predicated on these rules being the rules. And then of course I was introduced to human dissection and had the privilege of working with John Sharkey, and it was like, holy moly, we're not the same faces. There's no two faces the same. Even twins look similar, but they're not identical. Even identical twins, they're not exactly the same. They're nearly the same. But that's very samey. But most of us don't look the same. We don't look the same on the inside. And I was like, hang on a second. What do you mean we don't look the same on the inside? That's ridiculous. How can we not be the same on the inside? We're all studying anatomy books. And then I started, for various reasons, being in the lab and meeting surgeons. And what happens is they develop through their experience, not because they're looking for a cardboard cutout of the same thing over and over again, because there isn't any such thing. And then you start thinking, okay, now what's going on? And I had the privilege of teaching a course with John Sharkey called the One Series. And it was basically that every human being has one heart, one net, one muscle, one nerve. And that muscle is kind of tacked down in several hundred places. But, you know, we talk about muscles here like sternocleidomastoid being, you know, the origin and insertion at the mastoid process, and the sternoclavicular. No, it's continuous with sometimes with sternalis, if someone's got a sternalis muscle. Sometimes it's continuous with pec major, and the fibers from the rectus abdominis is completely continuous. Sometimes they're not connected to bones. They're connected to themselves in a sheath. I can't even tell you how not like we think it is. It is. And then it's like miracle.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
We are miracles.
We would be in awe of ourselves. We would never kill another human being if we realized how incredible we are. We're unbelievable. There'd be no such thing as jealousy in my world, Alison, because you wouldn't want to be anyone else, because you'd be so bowled over with how amazing you already are. That's what would happen. Seriously, it's incredible. You self-organized Alison into Alison before you knew Alison, before you knew who Alison wanted to be. And every day, no matter what happens, you're passionate about having a child. So what do? You make sure that you love and nurture a child that otherwise might not have had that journey. That's a spiritual gift. It's a privilege. It's a joy. It's a creation. You created that possibility. You did that out of your passion for caring about human beings. And I bet every one of your classes and every one of your student teachers knows that about you. They know you. They love you. They're like, oh yeah, but I work with Alison. And because they haven't got words. It's not an intellectual process. It's an emotional process. It's a bio-emotional process. It includes all of us, regardless of race, creed, color, religion, circumstance, gender, type, what. Every one of us is unique. And if we got that, we wouldn't have to prove it to anybody else. You know, what we suffer from are the judgments. And a lot of them. So never mind discussing whether they're right or wrong. Let's move the judgments out and say, look at this miracle, this little dot, this embryo, the size of a pencil dot, the zygote that when you were a unicellular being, the size of a pencil dot. Everything you needed to know was there. Everything.
Amazing.
Acorns don't queue up to go to oak tree school to become oak trees, right? Everything they need is in that little tiny seed. Hello.
I love that analogy, the acorn. And what you said, I want to dig deeper in this, because I think this is where your next book is going, in this more spiritual science direction. That it has always fascinated me. How is it that all the people in the world, everybody somehow has their own desire, like you said, my desire was to be a mother, and lawyers, doctors, fascia experts, Pilates teachers, yoga, everybody has, service, everyone has that within them. It's like, where does that come from? How do we, and obviously we cannot be mechanical if there's obviously something else telling us, or I don't know, what is, tell us a little bit more about.
In my world, people say to me, do you believe in God? And I say, well, what's your definition of God? And for me, that definition, if you can have one, is that which is the beingness of being, the isness. It's that. And I use the word God in the sense that it's not a religious sense of that there's a way of doing it. It's more of a sense of life force guiding me. You could call it spirit, you could call it source, you could call it whatever you want to call it. I personally don't think we get one go at life school. I have friends who do, like we're here and then we're gone and it's over. And I find myself saying things like, do you really think you got this much wisdom in one episode? I absolutely, but I just don't think there's. And I think we all are in Earth School as a spiritual choice to work through the physical. And what we've got to remember about the founding fathers of biomechanics and anatomy and physiology, such as we know it in the West, and it's only in the West that we divided the body and the being. Only in the West. In the East, in Asia, in Chinese medicine, in Japanese medicine, in African medicine, in Ayurvedic medicine, all the different medicines. Don't get me for not mentioning them all, but the tribal origins are everywhere. Wholeness is the prerequisite for understanding life. You come from the wholeness to restore the wholeness. In the West, we divided it down, and we have to lovingly remember that all of this took place during the Industrial Revolution. So mechanical was the key to progress. But what we did was we analysed the mystery out as if it didn't belong. Mystery is over there, and what we're doing is over here. This is science. And when you meet a true scientist, they live in that mystery. They have the grace to ask questions and know that they don't know. And what my next book includes the mystery, not explaining the mystery. I can't explain a mystery. Mystery means I don't have a bloody clue what it is any more than you do. But to invite that not knowing as part of the knowing, and the guidance into that not knowing, the humility to say, I don't know what to do next. There may not be a right way. Have I got the courage to make a choice and be responsible for choice? Don't know. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. But we have to return to wholeness. We have to start there. And why I say biomechanics isn't accurate is because there are no levers in nonlinear biologic forms, and we need to use the geometry of round things to make sense of how we form. And the geometry of life is there in every seed, forming every living thing, whatever that seed is, whatever, I'm going to say phylogeny, whichever section of the living kingdom you're in, it kind of doesn't matter. The same principles operate and the same geometry governs. And yet we divide everything down into factions in order to manage it. We have factions of movement, we have factions of anatomy and physiology and biomechanics, and they're based in the best we could do at the time. But just as we were in an industrial revolution 400 years ago, I think we're now entering a kind of energetic revolution, or a technological revolution. And we're moving into this world of what we're calling artificial intelligence, and it's no more than what we already have. It's reflecting what we really do as distinct from what we think we do. We think we function from the movement of levers and upright inverted pendulums. The spine is supposed to be an upright inverted. Give me a break, there's no upright. What do you mean an upright inverted pendulum? That's preposterous by any mechanical. I mean, give me a break. You don't, it does my head in. You can't do a handstand, your head would fall off.
Right.
It's just wrong. Tensegrity gives us the Buckminster Fuller had it. The tensegrity system, or Kenneth Snelson actually, who designed the needle tower at Washington. You were in Washington, aren't you?
No, Las Vegas, Nevada.
But you're Las Vegas. I knew that, Alison. Okay. I did know that. Whatever.
West, we're United States in the West. So
yes. Yeah.
Close.
Yeah. It's got it. And I yeah. Sorry, apologies.
Okay. No.
Snelson's needle tower was, Kenneth Snelson was an artist and a sculptor who discovered that the floating compression systems make sense. Now, Dr. Stephen Levin is the person that did a lot of work. He named the term biotensegrity, but the term tensegrity was designed by Buckminster Fuller based on Snelson's work, tensional integrity. But Snelson got the key, and he was an artist. I had the great good fortune of talking to him, and he said, understand that your whole body is a floating compression system. Your bones are floating in a sea of fascia contained at every level, which is a beautiful vision. So when we see something like Snelson's needle tower, what we're seeing is a map, a physical map of force transmission. It's forces, not forms. You won't open the body and find a tensegrity anywhere. What you're seeing, forces moving through the forms in tensegral sequences. And it makes perfect sense of every movement we make. It explains why I can hold my hand up like that and it doesn't fall off the end of my wrist. If it was a lever, I'm not doing that. But I'm not trying to convert the world to a new way of thinking. What I'm trying to do is demonstrate that you knew there were no origins and insertions. You got frustrated with yourself because you couldn't learn them, because basically it was like trying to take a lioness and fit her into a matchbox and make her conform to that matchbox and come out doing nothing more than a mouse or a beetle would do. Beetles go in matchboxes. I don't know if you're familiar with A.A. Milne, Christopher Robin. He wrote a poem about letting beetle out of a matchbox. But basically, what I'm saying is you couldn't be squished into that small container that said, Alison, you've got to learn your origin insertions, because if you don't, you're never going to understand the human body. Now, you were never asked to work on a puppet or a model or a mannequin or anything like it. You were only ever asked to work with people. Mm-hmm. And you work with those people. You work with a resonance that you know when someone's giving you BS. You know it in your gut. You couldn't even tell me how you know, but you know before you could tell me. Same as you know when someone's coming from desperation or loving or fear or concern. You know, those teachers that say, I don't want to do Pilates with anyone that's pregnant. What they're basically saying is, I don't know what I don't know, so I don't want to risk something coming from service. I say, brava, good for you. When I'm working with somebody who's pregnant, trust me, I'm as careful can be, because the truth is neither of us know what's going to happen. And I might work with them for 1 or 2 hours. I don't know what they're doing for the other 22 that day. And it's like, how do we know? We don't. We have to have some permission for the mystery. We have to have some airspace for the not knowing, and incorporate that and forgive ourselves for not knowing everything. We don't know everything.
I like that permission.
It's permission. It's
for
permission
the mystery.
To not know. It's permission to, honestly, like, I'll have a client who says, do you think I can do this yoga pose? And I'll say, I've got no idea. I had a client come to me once. I'll share a lovely story. A client came to me once. They'd been diagnosed with a deformed shoulder.
I hate that word.
Ooh, does my head
deformed.
In. Yeah. Oh, like, really? And I said, okay, man in his 40s, deformed shoulder, came in. And I said, what's the problem? And he said, well, what's your dream? What do you want to be able to do? Are you in pain? Yes, I am. I am in pain. Not a lot, but enough. I'd love to know if I can ameliorate the pain, or get rid of the pain would be heaven. And I said, yes, but what would you like to do? Well, I'd like to play golf. Okay. Why can't you play golf? Can you play golf? And he said, well, no, apparently the deformation is due to a muscle imbalance that means I can't adduct my shoulder. So therefore I can't play golf because it's on the right side. It's my right shoulder. So I can't make that movement, because we don't play golf from left to right. We play golf from right to left. That's it, written off. So I said, okay, may I body read you? And he said, yes, of course. Very, very self-conscious, took off his shirt, which he didn't like doing. And I said, I'm not being rude, but your shoulder's not deformed. You just don't have a pec major on that side. You've got pec major on the other side. I can see pec minor on that side and no pec major. Or if you've got one, it's a very, very thin sheath. It's just not as, like when you open an orange segment and you get an extra little segment in there. Oh, you don't know. There might have been a big one missing compared to the orange on the next tree, but who cares, kind of thing. So he said, well, isn't that a deformation? I said, well, it depends who you ask. I just see it as a pec major muscle missing. And he said, but isn't that a muscle of adduction? Doesn't that mean I can't play golf? I don't know. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, why don't you go down to the golf course? He said, well, how would I do it? I said, I've got no clue. But what I do know is your body will find a way. And he said, well, how do you know that? I said, from the way you walk, from the way you move your arms, from the way you took your shirt off. You did everything bilaterally. And I reckon if you went down to the golf club, you'll find a way of playing golf. And he said, well, how? I said, I don't know. Come back and tell me. So off he went, came back. And what we realised, the muscles tension out. They're the fabric of the umbrella. But with an umbrella, we think of the spokes as opening the fabric. Well, your bones kind of, it's the other way round sometimes in the body. It's like the fabric pulls out and tensions the bones. So we think of the bones like hangers inside the fabric, but actually the fabric holds the bones together and apart at the same time. because there are no bones in the embryo. The first bones to form are the cranial bones, but then gradually the other bones form over life. You know, the full pelvis isn't formed until the child's about 5. So our bones respond to pressure. So what was happening was this great big sweep of muscle from rectus abdominis right out to here wasn't pulling his clavicle off his sternum. So it was rubbing. And he sat at his desk with his shoulders like this, hiding this deformity, with his head down, curled up in a ball. So I taught him how to sit up, how to move his pelvis so that he was sat well, so that his spinal curvature was good, so that he folded at the groin. It was very simple, basic stuff that most of us forget or don't know. But once we do, we never let it go. And he rang me up one day and he said, I'm sitting in my office and I'm looking around and everyone's sitting with their shoulders and their heads down and their breastbone into their stomach. I said, yeah, well, they're not breathing as well as you are. So do you do it? He said, well, can I tell them? I said, yeah, of course, teach them. So we went round. After 10 sessions, he became a golf coach. And he absolutely sobbed in my arms when I said, should we let go of the word deformity? He sobbed. And he just let go of the word deformity. And he sent me a photograph of him walking down the beach in a pair of jeans, no shirt. He'd never done that in his life. And for me, that was a bioemotional inhibition. It had almost nothing to do with the body. The body was fine. It just didn't look like everybody else's. That's bioemotional integrity. It worked. He found his own way of playing golf. And he used to say to his students, if I can do it, you can do it. You've got a muscle I don't even have. So let's get this working.
Right.
I call that alchemy, turning the lead of our wounds into the gold of our gifts, as Carolyn Mace would call it. And what it is for me, Alison, is a congruency between the physical, the emotional, the mental, the subconscious, the soul, the spirit, the whole lot, all came together in service. And what I cannot bear is what I see as segregation, as if our bodies are separate from our beings. And as long as we live in this paradigm of origin and insertion, linear anatomy and biomechanics, we are segregating nature from itself. And you knew that as a student, and you beat yourself up because you had to learn those origins and insertions, and they're meaningless. They're meaningless.
I don't know that I actually did. That's probably why I failed. Because I just couldn't. I didn't get it.
You beat yourself up for it as well, otherwise you wouldn't be telling me.
That's true.
You thought you failed. You did not fail.
Well, I think that tells you, right? Like, just outward, right? Outward, the importance of grades and what and like your client, perceiving that because it wasn't a certain way. That always makes me think of Nick. His name's Nick Verici, something like that. He's the man with no arms and no legs. Christian man. He speaks. He's got 2 little like toes, and he types like so many words a minute. He's a speaker all around the world. He has like 5 kids. He's married. He swims. He does all of these amazing things. He has a torso, a head, and 2 little toes. I mean, so it's just really, again, just shows, if we can be really careful with not telling our clients something is wrong with them. Like, nothing is wrong.
Yeah, there is nothing wrong here. And it sounds so crazy because the world at the moment and the wars and the horrors, there always are them. But if only we can, if there's no war in here, there won't be a war out there. And as long as you're thinking you've got to reduce this down to the anatomical sum of its biomechanical parts to make it work properly, there's a war going on in here because it's not reality. It's just not reality. Beings animate bodies through a fascial matrix that demonstrates and creates their architecture. Now, I'm not saying we don't have to learn. I'm not saying, no, Alison, you don't have to learn your origin insertions. Because, in my world, I work a lot with John. I'm on senior faculty at John's school, the National Training Centre of Ireland, where he teaches European neuromuscular therapy, and I'm very proud of that. And we have protocols. There are ways that work. You know, from Pilates, there are things to do that work and things to do that don't work. There is a huge value in education, but we are allowed to question the premise of the education, and not all things are right for all bodies. And what I struggle with is the idea that we've got to reduce everyone down to the same list of parts that join up in the same way, and nobody does the same thing. No two people do the same thing, you know? And it's like, okay. And Dr. Wilbur Kelsick, another very dear friend of mine, and he works with the Canadian Olympic team, and he was telling me, he did a podcast with me, and he was talking, it was wonderful. He was here, actually, he did it in person, and he's got this amazing voice and this accent from Dominica, you know, where he comes from, or Dominica, as he says, and he just says, Joanne, it's the rhythm. And I'm like, sorry? Rhythm. It's rhythm. It's all about rhythm. And it's not about biomechanics. And he was telling me that when you're working with a track and field athlete who wants to perform superbly, it doesn't matter how perfect their body is. It doesn't matter what muscles are tuned perfectly. It doesn't matter how well they've eaten, and all the mechanical list of items have all been ticked. If they can't find their rhythm through the tissue, this resonant field, this fascial matrix that conducts light and sound, and that's science, that's not la la land, that's science, conducts biophotonic emissions and sound waves through its structure, and to the level that that is congruent and rhythmical, it works. And it's not about knee joints. It's about force transmission through the form.
Through the form, right.
And I always honour education. It's, you know, there's right ways and wrong ways of doing things. And, you know, I see people watching things, and then polyvagal theory is a perfect example. You know, I've had the very good fortune to work with Stephen Porges personally. And I see people taking polyvagal theory and dissecting it down and turning it into Instagram bumper stickers. And in some ways I love it because it means it's getting out to everybody. And in other ways I'm like, hang on a second, that isn't actually what he said or meant. But it's all part of the mix. Right. You know, if it's allowed in spirit, it's allowed. But none of it is the same. None of us are the same. We're all different. And if we respect that, I just think some of the issues would go away. And if we went inside and honoured our beingness in our bodies as a whole shtick, instead of living under this idea they're all segregated and linear, I think we'd have more fun, actually, don't you?
I saw something, Peter Levine, I think, he did what in the idea of fun. I saw a YouTube video he just did the other day, and he said, just stand up. Actually, let's just do it. I was meaning to do this anyway, so I might as well do it. He said, just stand up. He said, if you're ever feeling, you know, just down and you just need to lift, he said, just stand up and you skip and you sing. Skip, skip, skip to my loo, skip, skip, skip to my loo, skip, skip, skip to my loo, skip to my loo, my darling. And he said, stop and feel the energy through your fingertips, through your body, and how literally in 5 seconds, just by changing the physiology, you can change. I mean, with something as silly as that, I think most people know that, right? Skip to my loo. Am I the...
No, I know it. I was with you.
No, but yeah. So
I love that. I love Peter Levine's work. And one other thing I want to give you as well, you know, just to kind of complete the circle.
Yeah.
And that, just sit quietly, just find your sitting bones, settle into them. I'm not going to do some dramatic meditation. Okay. This is seconds. And just simply breathe in, breathe out. Through your nose, you can rest your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Just gently breathe in through your nose and out through your nose or out through your mouth, whatever you want to do. There's no special way of doing it. It's just breathing. And just observe the breath. So you might want to close your eyes for a second and inhale, take a breath in, take a deep breath in, and then let that breath go. And now we're just going to shift and change one word. Instead of taking the next breath, receive the breath. Receive it as a gift of love from life itself. Just receive the breath. And when you let the breath go this time, give it away. Give it away to a tree, because it's inhaling, it's receiving your exhale. And it's giving away the inhale that you're going to receive next. And then allow the sense, if you feel it, of connection to simply infiltrate and wrap and surround you, knowing that you're ready to receive the next breath as a gift. And then the next one you're going to give away as a gift. And then imagine there's some gratitude for that, and the word gratis and the word grace. Grace and gratitude both come from the Latin gratis. And when you open your eyes, when you're ready, imagine that connection remains, and we're all completely connected. We always were. We just forget. And all we do as humans is remember ourselves to the collective.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for agreeing to come on and do this. Is Instagram Live's it's kind of informal, you know, but I love it because it's going to reach so many people. You know, I don't have to do anything. I just have to share. And this was just amazing.
Privilege. Alison, really, it's a privilege, and I love the work you're doing, and I love your inclusive way. And I think we're all in service. Everyone here who's with us now, and I've just seen Helen Eady, who's one of my very, very dear friends, colleagues who works with me. And hi, Helen. And hello to everybody. Oh, there's Liz, Tensegrity Medicine, Charleston. I love you, Joe. I love you, Liz. There's such beautiful people. I've seen names come up, but I just was concentrating hard on what you were saying and asking me. We all need to be very passionate about and forgiving about how we bring our work forward as ours, but as a collective understanding that we're all connected. Everything on the inside is connected. Everything on the outside is connected. And as you asked me about the embryo, let me share this lovely little factoid, which is that every egg that you're ever going to produce is present in you as an embryo in your mother. So every egg that your mother was ever going to produce, including the one that is you, was present in her embryonic form in your grandmother. We are a continuum. We are a continuum. We are the moving, living representation of that continuing. And the question is, how do I want that to continue? I want it to continue with love. I want it to continue with light. I want to continue it with the sound of peace, of laughter, of what you made us giggle when we sang "Skip to My Lou, My Darling." That's brilliant. I'm going to be doing that forever now.
I know.
Not because of the theme, but because of you.
It's so fun. I mean, that's one of the things I tell my student teachers to do with their moms. Like, just they need to laugh. They need to laugh and stop looking at their bodies like something is wrong with this beautiful thing that just birthed a human, which is a lot of the problem, you know. And just, I love the idea of the inside out.
It's awesome. And I look at my son, he's here, so I've got to be quiet. He's just home for a little bit and he'll be gone soon, but he's over 6 foot. He's huge. He's nearly 30. God knows how I've got nearly 30. It just does my head in. And he's got this passion for things that he does, and he cares about people, and he's all this. And I just look sometimes and I just think, you're an awesome being. And my mother is the same with me, and so was my father. I'm very lucky. I was doted on from the moment I was even heard of. And I know it's not the same for everybody, but every single one of us is a child of life, and there is love here for us if we can find it. And I think we have to start off by loving ourselves and forgiving ourselves for anything that we've got a judgment about, any story. And unbelievably, that has a profound physiological effect on the tissue of our body. It allows it to light up and tune and rhythmically respond. And you just demonstrated that perfectly.
Peter Levine. That's Peter Levine.
Don't give him all the credit. You used it and you got me to do it on IG Live. Stand here skipping. It's beautiful. What's this? Somebody's just left a gorgeous message.
Dr. Pishka. Hi, Dr. Pishka. How are you?
So
we have
lovely comments throughout.
We have too many Indian ancient school of thoughts from your Ayurveda too about garb sanskar. It means getting values right through the womb. Wow.
I mean, if that doesn't talk about continuum and connectivity, and listen, I've got to share something with you. I know we've got to go, but I've just got to share this.
Yes.
I had brilliant, and I mean brilliant, hypnotherapist to help me with my birth of my son. And she talked about halfway through my pregnancy. She said to me, "Talk to your son." I said, "What do you mean? Talk to him?" Sorry? So she said, "No, talk to him, but also tap." I said, sorry? Well, it turns out in Japan, they teach babies maths in utero. Don't even ask. I'm not even going there. All I did was, as soon as he was big enough that I could feel him, like against the sides of my skin, as it were, and couldn't quite tell if it was an elbow or a fist or a knee. But, when they get to that stage where everything's uncomfortable. And I would tap 3 times, and I'd get 3 little elbows back, and then I'd press twice on the other side and I'd get 2 back. And we were in complete communication 3 months before he was born. Wow. And I didn't know you could do that. I mean, gentle, and only when he was awake. I mean, I knew when he was awake, when he was asleep, because he was either kicking whatever out of me or he was quiet. But one day I was watching a concert, a pop concert on television, I think. He was doing all this on the inside, dancing, bloody loved it. And then when the adverts came on, all still completely disinterested. So I don't know what's going on in there, but if we think for a minute that they can't hear us and sense us, I mean, sorry, it's all there. And I just used to talk to him with these little presses, and I just do 3 little taps, and I get 3 little taps, and 2 presses, and I'd get 2 presses, the same speed, the same tempo. I can't even tell you. And now, even I mean, we can fight like a couple of cats, the pair of us. Not nasty. I get on his nerves. It's amazing. But yeah, the chips are down when there's anything wrong. He's there. He communicates with me in a whole other way. He's no mummy's boy. He's out in the world. I mean, he's out, whatever. But when I need him, I'm just like on the phone. I text. Sorry, need you. Bum. And he's there. I can't have any expectation. Not on call. What I mean is, when the chips are down, he's there. It's amazing, and it's a communication that's pre-birth, and it was a gift. And I think that set off the thing about touch in me that is so important. And this is where bioemotional intelligence came from. To go back to your original question, Alison. Every time we touch each other, physically or emotionally, we are in this profound communication. And I think if we could honour that, then we understand why the fascia is much more of a communication system than we think. It communicates when the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, when you've got that and something's not quite straight and you know you're being worked, or all that's, and we'd honor and incorporate that in our movements, in our teaching, in our confidence. I hope with you, and I thank you for saying that bioemotional intelligence becomes a thing. I really do, because we've got all the ability of artificial intelligence already going on and we just don't know it. We've generated from us, it's not made up out there that came to us, it came from us. It's brilliant, but it's no more than our bodies are already doing.
You have a book coming out. Is that, could we talk about that? Is that, I don't know what the, rules are.
No, there's no.
I don't know. Handspring, is it through Handspring?
Handspring, yeah. It's now owned by Jessica Kingsley Publishing, or Singing Dragon, but yes.
Okay. And we have a name yet? Do we have a date?
Yes, we do. We have a name, we have a course, we have a series, actually. It's one of 5 books. I've been commissioned to do 5 books. And the first in the series is Myofascial Magic in Action. And it's all about the practical application of what I got from yoga, fascia, anatomy and movement was, a lot of people said it's very intellectual, it's very heavy going, it's brilliant, but can I disseminate it more? So during lockdown, I did some classes called a series of master classes, ABC, Anatomy Basic course. And out of those classes, Handspring asked me if I would write a book on each one of them. And you'll be delighted to know that book number 3 is Embryo. And
so what's the progression? So the first one, when is the first one due?
Myofascial Magic in Action, I'm just finishing. The course is already out, but because it's very practical. And the book is basically the history, the mystery, the magic, the 5 R's: rebound, recoil, release, restore, refine. If we work them in that order, it's just brilliant. And what it is, it's like whether you're a yoga teacher, Pilates teacher, Tai Chi teacher, whatever you do, doesn't matter, manual therapist, there are micro movements in a certain order that you can build into the body, and I call it prehab. So it's not an alternative movement system, it's not another ism or another ology, it's none of that. It's a very, very practical way of working in a specific order, and behind it is the wisdom of John Sharkey's work in medical exercise, but feeding. So you've got a Pilates repertoire, for example, and what you do is feed it with these micro moves so that your client is getting their own feedback, so they do it to the extent they can. So you've got this, you're building your myofascial wisdom feedback system in whatever repertoire you apply. So you know how to modify for somebody through their response, you know how to read it with them. So I'm very excited about it. And we created it as a course as soon as I'd written the book outline, to make sure that I was feeding back what was absolutely practical into the book. And I've illustrated this one myself. They caught me drawing during lockdown. My publisher caught me drawing. She said, "What are you drawing?" And I showed her. And she said, "I'll show you one." And she said, "I want those drawings in the book." And I was like, "Seriously?" And she said, "Absolutely." So this was me. Can you see?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And this was me praying when the war was declared in Ukraine or wherever. And this was me in absolute despair one day. Can you see?
Yes, that's amazing.
And then my son came in to help. So that was him rescuing. So that's what I think of it.
Amazing.
Anyway, I was just ribbles because I did this cartoon course during lockdown that taught you how to do a selfie. This is me on a normal day, just like, what the hell's going on? Because I never know. And for it, and she just said, "Could you illustrate the book with those images?" And I said, "Seriously?" And she said, "Yeah." So of course there's 100 images in the book just of the practices of these really subtle micro movements. So I'm very excited about it. And the next one is Fascia Integrity, which I'm doing with John Sharkey. We're doing that together. Myofascial Magic in Action is with Paul Thornley.
Okay.
He didn't help me write the book, but he helped me produce the course. And he's doing Fascia Integrity with me as well, as is John. I feel so privileged because these people are all like, it's like we're all friends. It's like, I can't explain, Alison, but this is what I'm talking about, that we're all in a collective. And I just think it's so essential that we get that we're all working together. There's no one who's found the way. It's just really all work. And all the movement teachers I meet, all the manual therapists I meet, they're so dedicated. They've got such a sense of service. And I just want to support that in any way I can. So I wanted to say, look, this is all the research from recent years. Let's put it together and turn it into a practice. And here's how it works, because it works. And so the first one's myofascial magic in action. The second one's fascia integrity in motion. The third one is Embryo. The fourth one is somatic archetypes. And the fifth one is bioemotional intelligence.
Amazing. Okay.
Amazing.
And then date. Do we have a date?
Do I have a date? Well, the course is available now, myofascialmagic.com.
And that's on joanneavison.com?
Well, it's on myofascialmagic.com or joanneavison.com. It's on my Instagram. You can, whatever. And that's available as a program. But the only qualification you have to have, you must be a teacher already, unless you're doing it for yourself. Because it's not like a training where you learn how to become a Pilates teacher. Sure. You're already a teacher working within your scope of practice and qualification with others. You can do it, anybody can do it, but they're doing it for themselves. They're not doing it to teach others. Right. But you can teach others if you've got a license to do that. So we're not giving you that license. I'm just making sure people understand, and it's got all the due medical disclaimers and all that, because it's not replacing medical advice. But what it is working with is the micro movements that, because I do a lot of work with senior citizens, and having them build back in their resilience and their natural rebound. Because we're not made of levers, we're made of round things. We have this thing called natural recoil. And if we can re-establish it, it's how a baby's born, it spirals out. And we can re-establish that and bring that rhythm to our movements, and we bounce, basically. So when my 89-year-old father slipped over in the mud and was completely hurt, because he just said, I just fell over and I bounced, because he did the movements. So it kind of works. Anyhow, so that's that one. And then fascia integrity in motion will be written as soon as I've handed in this manuscript. I've just got 20 more drawings to do, and then they're just coming over the next few years, and I'm so excited. And I don't see it as, oh, look at me, aren't I clever, I've done. It's not like that. It's a team. It's taken a village, and that everyone is honoured, and I feel you're part of the team, as are some of the people on this program that I've seen their names come through, and I'm like, oh, yes, because we have to create a big collective. Can I share a secret?
Please, yes.
So I've never said this before out loud.
Okay.
I want to create the Ministry of Magical Movement. Now, I know that's bonkers, because what do you mean, the Ministry of Magical Movement? What the hell is that? It's exactly that. It's a Ministry of Magical Movement. So that movement, like you just did with that skipping and singing, that was magical. That's magical movement. I don't have a thing for it. Like, it's not a £1,000 private club membership a month thing. It's not that. It's a way of moving magically, so we can get back our innate abilities and calm down and rest well and sit still well. And I don't think sitting's the new smoking. I think sitting can train us rather than strain us if we know how to do it.
Right.
And it's super simple stuff. So that's it. I just want millions of ambassadors out there making a difference in the world and making people happy, and they're already doing that, and this just augments that. So there you go, my silly dream.
More inside, and a Ministry of Magical Movement. I love it.
But is your work ministry, Alison? Finish up. I know you may not be a minister formally, but isn't your work a ministry?
Yeah, like my dream is to have Pilates teachers teaching pre and postnatal women with the method that I use, which goes way beyond the movement. I mean, movement, like teaching them the movement is the easy part. It's everything else that's not. And, that is, I mean, that's what keeps me going, which I wanted to ask you too, what your motivation is, but that is my motivation, is that that all over the world, there are Pilates teachers, any kind of teacher that are that are serving the pre and postnatal population with compassion.
And that's naturally a ministry of magical movement. So we're on the same page.
And that's what motivates you then? What keeps you doing what you do?
I was diagnosed 2 years ago with breast cancer. And it came like a sledgehammer out of the sky. Because I don't know why, I just like, me?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I can't even tell you. But that's what happened. And I literally, it was like standing on a track that I could only go one way. And it was an oncoming train on that track. And, they talk about the light at the end of the tunnel was an oncoming train. And on the registration plate was oncology. The word was oncology. And I was like, kidding me. And I fell off that track into a pile of grace. It taught me so much. And I came out of it knowing that I treat people with cording and tethering from the surgery of the various ways breast cancer shows up and levels and types and whatever. And I had to have a full lymphectomy, all my lymph nodes removed. So my arm was damaged. I still have nerve damage down my arm. And I was like, what am I going to do? And I have this voice in my head said, well, if you don't know what to do, who does? And I was like, well, don't be ridiculous. This isn't, I'm not my client. I mean, I was really in a state. I was really shocked. And when I got over the shock, I sat there and I thought, well, I've got to make this work. I treat people for this. I can't have tethering and cording. I've got to prevent. I'm the experiment. Oh, God. So I had to kind of find my way, and I did 12 minutes of micro movements a day in a particular sequence, trying it out, scaling it, measuring it, working it out, while I was training in my doctorate in spiritual science, which I nearly gave up, but somehow spirit just turned it round so that I could do it. And within 12 weeks, I was back, having had a broken wing that I couldn't move at all. I couldn't even lift my elbow. And within 12 weeks, I was doing full weight bearing yoga, micro movements, 12 minutes a day. And I thought, there's something in this.
That's
this
a
stuff
book.
I've been teaching. That's a book.
12 minutes a day.
Exactly. So, and then Paul was one of my very dear friends, as was John and Wilbur and Karen Kirkness and Jaap van der Waal. They were all like with me, and many people I could name. They were fantastic. I mean, 3 days didn't go by without a call from one of them asking, how are you? So I was never alone. I was always so supported. And Sue Hitzman, Jill Miller, all of them, they were lovely. They took time out to message me. And I can't tell you, it was such a privilege to feel so loved. I couldn't feel sorry for myself. I couldn't get away with it. And that really is what my fascial magic came out of, because it was magical to me that so little could make such a difference. And so the transformation there was like, I felt like the service or the mission or the ministry was the least I can do is leave this legacy. Because I don't know how long I've got, and it gave me a shock that maybe it's not that long, but I hope I outlive these 5 books that I've been commissioned to do at least, and leave a bit of a legacy that makes a difference to other people, making a difference to other people, which you do. So I thank you.
Thank you
for that.
For sharing that. I did not know that. I don't know that you shared that on your podcast, or yeah, I haven't. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Pilates with Claudia, who's always on. She's always, bless you for liking my posts. You see people, I'm dying to meet everybody. I want to meet everybody that I went to Canada to do a presentation. Wilbur set up a conference a few years ago, Biointegrity Summit, he called it. And I'll never forget, Dr. Apeksha, thank you so much for everything you said. I was in the elevator, and this is how I don't get it. I mean, seriously, I was in the elevator and a couple of people were in the elevator, and they turned around and went, are you Jo Avison? And I sat there and I thought, oh my God, immigration's caught up with me from the airport. That was an idiot thought. And I thought, shit, what am I going to do? And I went, yeah. And I thought, you just got to own up. And I went, yeah, it's me. And they looked at me and they said, are you all right? And I said, yeah. Have I done something wrong? They went, no, we've paid a load of money to come and see everybody at this conference, and you're the one, you're in the conference. So oh yeah, hello, yes, I'm Joanne. Who are you? How'd you do? Like, I was just convinced it was immigration, because you don't know people know you from something like this.
Yeah.
And like, you know me. How do you know me?
Yeah.
I'm not you, but we've created a relationship, in our messaging and everything. But it's that, and it's really weird. Really weird.
Well, yeah, someday, of course, I'll have to see you in person.
I'd love to be. Oh, Lolly Stokes just arrived. Hi, Lolly.
She'll have to watch the hour-and-a-half replay.
She's married to my first yoga teacher, John Sturck, and I mentioned him earlier. He's amazing. He was the man that put me onto Mabel E. Todd and told me to learn the thinking body before I learned about the anatomy. And he's just the most amazing man. He's an amazing contribution, really. I'm not saying that because you're here, Lolly. I said it already before. I'm sorry, long. It's been a joy talking to you.
Don't ever apologize. I was going to say the same thing. I wasn't sure how long you had allocated.
I didn't.
And I appreciate everything about you and your time and your realness, being a person. I tend to, having so many mentors, I put everybody on a pedestal, and so it's so nice to actually converse with you as my mentor and a human.
A friend and a colleague. I would love to.
That's an honor for you to say that.
No, thank you. We're all in this together, and as I've said several times, that I think every one of us is just serving the best we can at the time, and you're making that effort to make that bigger contribution. It's to be acknowledged, big time.
Thank you so much, and you're a huge part of it, and I'm excited about your next book, and I'm excited for the people that can watch the replay, and thank you for all of you who've been here. And I've seen all the comments too. I feel bad I haven't been interacting. I've been just interacting with you, but everybody that's here, I see you all, and thank you so much for being here and being a part of all of this. And I'll let you get down with your evening. It's 7:30 now there for you. And your son is there, so
but he
doesn't come there
and making that buzzing noise. God bless him, he heard it from upstairs.
Oh.
God bless you, Alison, and thank you.
God bless you. Thank you so much. I will talk to you soon, see you soon, hopefully, and have an amazing evening.
And you. Take care.
See you
Bye.
soon.